It's been over 3 months since the last patch, so I might be rusty here covering this one. Bear with me please. 1.7.2 has a ton of changes, and while nothing here is earth-shattering like 1.7 was, there are a significant amount of fixes and tweaks that are worth talking about. Let's dive right in. The crash fix list is massive at 28 in total. I can't speak to any of these personally, but this is a much longer list than the previous patches, so hopefully it helps some of you. The performance list is also longer than normal with 10 items this time around. It's always difficult to say how effective they are on the day of the patch, but one thing I look for consistently is memory leak issues, as I run into this frequently. We see 2 items from the list regarding memory leaks, which is great to see. If you like new equipment, then this patch will not disappoint. We see 9 pieces of armor added to the game, 5 new capes, and 4 body armors. Let's take a look at the capes first. The decorated leather harness has 4 body armor and 7 arm armor, weighing in at 2.5 and costing 906 dinars. It looks pretty basic, which I suspect is its role. The caped leather harness adds an actual cape. This armor is mediocre at 5 body and 7 arm armor. It weighs 2.7 and costs 1582 dinars. Next, the decorated leather hardened with padding looks like an American football shoulder pad set. Armor comes in at 10 for the body and 8 for the arms. It weighs 3.2 and costs 2200 dinars. Now for some real armor. The decorated leather harness overscale comes in at a whopping 19 body armor and 12 arm, weighing 14 and costing nearly 32,000. It's a very good looking armor with brass scales under the leather straps. The decorated leather harness overmail sacrifices some arm armor to pick up a little more from the body, 16 body and 10 arm. It weighs 13.2 and costs 10,000 dinars. I'm not really sure how I feel about how this one looks though. Moving on to the body armor, the mastercrafted southern scale mail is gorgeous with flowing bronze scales covering the chest. The armor comes in at 35 for the body, 6 for the legs, and 7 for the arms. The weight is 18 and a cost of 17,000 dinars. It's very reasonable. Time for the big boy armor, the mastercrafted southern scale over chain hauberk. This armor looks very similar to the previous, but adds chainmail underneath for more layers of armor. It comes in at 51 body, 25 leg, and 16 arm armor, which is incredible. It weighs 28 and costs 432,000 dinars, which is in line with other late game armors. For the mastercrafted southern scale over chainmail, the only difference is the skirts are replaced with chainmail, but the rest of the body armor looks the same. Body armor comes in at 51, leg and arm both at 16. It weighs only 22 and costs 393,000. Finally, we have the tartan toga. Not much to say here. It shows 1 nipple and has 4 body and 9 leg armor. There are a ton of good changes in the UI section, so let's go over my favorite here. For the quest screen, there is a drop down menu at the top which sorts quests by start date, last update, and time due. This is a nice quality of life change, but not a big deal unless you like to take 50 quests or more at once. Another nice quality of life change is the addition of the recruit all prisoners button. To access this, you must go to the top right of the screen to pull down the recruit prisoner pop-up. Then at the bottom you'll see a recruit all button. Nice. It says there were changes to the layout screen for a few areas like the settlement tab, quest screen, and town management screen, but I have not noticed much, except perhaps the town management screen. It seems to have a bit more space with the text, but overall I didn't notice much different. If you know what this is referring to, please leave a comment and let me know. There isn't much in the fixes section, but one thing worth noting is for crossbows on the order of battle screen. We can now properly separate crossbows in the battle order screen. There was a bug that would mess up the sliders from moving crossbows around. Now we can easily set up another range group, limit by shields, then move the slider until all 100 crossbows are in their own group. Doing a quick inspection, we see everybody separated into their proper group. The battle and sieges section has several important changes that I'm really happy to see. They added an option under the gameplay tab that allows us to control the order in which our troops will spawn. We can see it here, a drop-down menu labeled Unit Spawn Prioritization, and has 4 settings. Default will pick troops based on the party screen order. High level will spawn higher level troops first, low level will spawn low level troops first, and homogeneous mixes them all in equal ratio. It's a shame we still can't separate out different unit tiers though. They finally fixed the bug that causes the AI to be wildly inaccurate with throwing weapons when taking perks that change the projectile speed. Now we can have a squad of Javelin companions that ignore shields. In the testing, our companions destroyed these cavalry before they made a full loop around our formation. All companions have the Impale perk as well, so it's quite satisfying to watch the shield wall get ragdolled. The enemy gets the revenge in the end though. There was a bug that allowed the player to continue a siege with a kingdom that they were no longer at war with. You were able to continue building siege engines after the fact and kept the town under siege. Then declare war and start the siege with everything being built, but not anymore. It seems like Tailworlds listened to the thousands of complaints regarding engineering XP gain. Siege engine kills with an onager or a trebuchet would give athletics and throwing XP, and now grant engineering XP. I tested a siege defense and mounted the ballista, which yielded only engineering skill with each kill. No longer will siege engines give throwing, bow, or athletic skill. battle. By the end of the siege, we racked up 83 kills and went from level 1 to level 143. This was a much needed change. They adjusted the trade XP so that profit is logged once per transaction, which I suspect will make several of the trait exploits no longer valid. I've never used them, so I'm not sure how to test it, but just something to be aware of. I'm wondering if Tailworlds watched my culture guide, as they seem to have fixed all the issues with the culture bonuses. Now Khazate horse archers have a cheaper recruiting and upgrading cost, and Aserai trade penalty perk actually works now. Looking at the Khazate culture perk, we see a tier 3 horse archer now costs the same as a tier 3 melee cav. For the upgrades, we see horse archers costing 22 to get their tier 3, but the foot troops costing 25. It's working. Yay. The next fix will be impossible to test over the course of a few hours on patch day, but I'm really happy to see the attention to this issue nonetheless. Even more so if it actually works. Improvements to the AI on the campaign map includes adjusting behaviors depending on which priority our kingdom is set on. We can find this tab by clicking on the kingdom tab at the bottom, then the diplomacy tab in the top right, then clicking on each kingdom we're at war with, and there will be a drop down underneath our main character's picture. I noticed these settings did have some effect, but it's good to see they adjusted them even further. One more thing to note for this section in particular, parties trying to defend a settlement will adopt the escort behavior with other parties in the area with a similar objective, meaning they will clump together to defend rather than going in piecemeal. They also adjusted the spawn rate for companions in later stages of the game. I never ran into this personally, but I've heard of it being an issue for others. Now it shouldn't be as hard to find a good companion in the late game. Under the army section, we see another big change. Armies will now take villages into consideration when buying food. It was common to have an AI-led army starve to death, passing villages in order to retreat to a friendly town. You could follow them and wait for their numbers to drop to 0 and wipe the whole army out without even doing a fight, but not anymore. This should bring some stability to the AI-led armies. For economy and trade, we see a change to the troop types recruited by caravans. Now they will be culture-based rather than random and correspond to the player's starting culture. I tried this out with 3 different notables in town at all 3 different power levels, but didn't notice any difference. I also checked the AI-led caravans and didn't notice any difference in troop type. Maybe it only happens later in the game, I'm not sure. They say they adjusted weapon crafting materials, but I checked all of the usual suspects and I see no changes, so I'm curious what was actually changed. The pointed falchion blade, which is tier 4, still costs only wrought iron. This tier 4 pommel costs iron while all others cost steel. This two-handed grip at tier 5 costs steel while all other tier 5 cost fine steel. And the pugyo and tribesman daggers still give way too many high crafting tier materials. If anyone can find a changelog for this, I would love to see it. Bandit bosses now start with their weapon drawn. No more easy kills. I wonder if this fight is possible. New challenge coming soon perhaps? We can now interact with prisoners in a dungeon or party. This will be a game changer, as before it was only possible to recruit a clan by meeting their clan leader outside of an army. Now we can take them as prisoner in battle, then put them in a dungeon and talk to them directly. Take note, you cannot do it from the town menu and must be done by going into the prison personally. If you hold Alt down, it will show the location of the prisoner you're looking for, which will save you some time running around looking for him. You can open the dialogue through the prison cell and give it a go. We failed here though. There are way too many changes and balances to units across all factions to go over, but one thing I can tell you is how happy I am I didn't go too deep into the unit versus unit testing yet. I'll be covering all units in the game soon, and I'm excited to see how these changes play out. While I haven't played multiplayer yet, it's good to see a lot of changes on this front. Hopefully they're meaningful, as I do plan on getting into multiplayer in the near future. There are a few changes near the end of the patch notes, but nothing really major here. Oh, one quick addition before we end. We can no longer break prisoners out of a castle. The function has been disabled. It's only possible to do this now from towns. Shout out to Flasson19 for the heads up. Overall, this patch includes mostly fixes and quality of life changes, so if you were expecting a ton of new content, then I would hold off on upgrading to the beta branch. I was really hoping for a fix to unit separation that was taken away in patch 1.7, but we will have to wait a little bit longer. That being said, I think there's enough here to justify trying the patch out, especially with some of the big changes to recruiting nobles from prison and being able to level up engineering finally. I would also like to point out that performance for this patch has been amazing so far. The game runs really smoothly. Cutscenes and chat pop-ups are even faster than before. Don't forget to hit the like button, it really helps me out a lot. Let me know what you think of this patch in the comments. Thank you for your time and have a great week.